Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from Group 10 and now we will present about the brief summary of the book Pragmatics by George Yule. For the first, I will introduce the member of Group 10. First is Muhammad Ghazali, second Azizah Jamal Pasalongi, and the next Nurjana, the last Rafiatus Salihah. Okay, the first explanation will be presented by Muhammad Ghazali.
Chapter 1. Definition and Backgrounds. Definition of Pragmatics. First, Pragmatics is concerned with the study of meaning as communicated by a speaker or writer and interpreted by a listener or reader. Second, Pragmatics is the study of speaker meaning. Third, Pragmatics is the study of contextual meaning. It has consequently more to do with the analysis of what people mean by their utterances than what the words of phrases in those utterances might mean by themselves. Pragmatist linguistic. This approach also necessarily explores how listener can make inferences about what say in order to arrive at interpretation of the speaker intended meaning. Syntax, semantics, and pragmatics. First, syntax is the study of the relationship between linguistic forms and how they are arranged in sequence. Semantic is the study of the relationship between linguistic forms and entitles in the world. That is how words literally connect to things. Third, pragmatics is the study of the relationship between linguistic forms and the users of those forms. And in this three-part distinction, only pragmatics allow humans into the analysis. Chapter 2. Deixis and distance. Deixis is a technical term from Greek for one of the most basic things we do with utterances. Person deixis clearly operates on a basic three-part division exemplified by the pronouns for the first person, second person, third person in many languages. Spatial deixis or place deixis. The concept of distance is relevant to spatial deixis, where the relative location of people and things is being indicated. Temporal deixis, or also known as a time deixis, the deixis which is used to point the time. It concerns itself with the various times involved in an reference to in an utterance, such as tonight, last week, yesterday, before, after, or etc. Deixis and grammar. We know that the fundamental differences presented so far for personal can all be seen working in one of the most common structural differences made in English grammar, namely between direct and indirect or reported speech. Chapter 3. Reference and inference. References is act in which speaker or writer uses linguistic form to enable a listener or reader to identify something. And inferences is additional information used by the listener to create a connection between what it said and what must be meant. Attributive or non-referential. Whoever or whatever fits the description, it doesn't refer to a particular entity and any of that. Referential. It refers to a particular entity. Name and reference. Convention between all members of a community who share common language or culture, which needs collaboration of intention to identify, and recognition of intention is the process of speaker and listener to have collaboration work. The role of context. The ability to identify intended reference depends on the listener's understanding of the reference expression and aided by the linguistic material or context. Anaphoric preference. means that a word in the text refers back to the other ideas in the text for its meaning. It can be compared with the anaphoric reference, which means a word refers to ideas later in the text.
Next material explained by me. Chapter 4 is presupposition and entrapment. A presupposition is something the speaker assumes to be the case prior to making an utterance. Speaker, no sentence have presuppositions and entrapment. It's something that logically follows from what is asserted in the utterance. Sentence, not speaker have entitlements. Presupposition in main discussion of the concept. Presupposition is treated as a relationship between two propositions. Um, this of preposition is generally described as contingency under negation. Basically, it means that the preposition of the statement will remain constant even when that statement is negated. Okay, the next is chapter 5 is cooperation and implicator. The comparative principle consider the following scenario. Cooperative principle is the idea that people comparative with each other in conferencing. There are four maxims under this general principle: quantity, quality, relation, and manner. Hedges, when making a statement, certain expression can be used to indicate the degree of certainty concerning the information given. Conversational implicator is an indirect or implic speech at what is meant by a speaker's utterance that is not a part of what is explicitly said. The term is also known is simply as implicator. It is the anonym of explicator, which is an explicitly communicate assumption. When no special knowledge is required in the context, the calculate the additional conveyed meaning it's the called generalized conversational implicator. Scalar implicators occur when certain information is communicated by choosing a word which which expresses one value from the scale of value. This is particularly obvious in terms for expressing quantity.
Okay, now I will explain about chapter 6, speech acts and events. Action performed via utterances are generally called speech acts. More specific levels such as apology, complaint, compliment, invitation, promise, or request. The action performed by producing an utterance will consist of three related acts: first, electionary act; second, electionary act; and the last, perlectionary act. If it is an expression of the type shown in where there is a slot for a verb that explicitly names the lectionary act being performed. The next, felicity condition is certain expected or appropriate circumstances. And next, a speech act classification consists of 5 types. These are declaration, representatives, expressive, directive, and commissive. Direct and indirect speech acts is a direct and indirect relation between a structure and a function. A speech event is an activity in which participants interact via language in some conventional way to arrive at some outcome. And next, chapter 7, politeness and interaction. Politeness, the means employed to show awareness of another person's face. Face means the public self-image of a person, refers to that emotional and social sense of self that everyone has and expect everyone else to recognize. Phase 1 is people generally behave as if their expectation concerning their public self-image or their phase 1s will be respected. Negative and positive phase. Negative phase is the need to be independent, and positive phase is the need to be connected. Say nothing. Many people prefer to have their needs recognized by others without having to express in language. Say something off and on record. Act as if the statement have not even been heard, it calls off record, and directly address the other as a means of expressing your needs, it calls on record. Positive and negative politeness. Positive is appeal to common goal, and negative is face-saving act. Strategy. Solidarity strategy is the tendency to use positive politeness form, and deference strategy is the tendency to use negative politeness form. And the last, consequences. Face is typically a trick when the self needs to accomplish something involving other.
Okay, the next presenter is me, and then I will explain about conversation and preference structure. Conversation analysis. Conversation analysis is analysis of natural conversation to reveal what the linguistic feature of conversation is and how conversation is used in ordinary life. There are two categories of conversational analysis. The first is turn taking, and the second is TRP or transition relevance place. And the next is about pauses, overlaps, and back channels. Pauses is silence between turn. It can be hesitation or silences. And then overlaps is both speakers trying to speaker at the same time. And the next is back channels, ways of indicate that the listener is following or not objecting to what the speaker says. The channels could be in forms of head, nod, smile, or other facial expression and gestures. And then the next is about conversational style. There are two types of conversational styles, which is high involvement style and then high considerateness style. And the next is about adjacency pairs. Adjacency pairs is a pair of conversational turns by two different speakers such that production of the first turn called a first pair part makes a response or a second pair part of particular kind relevant. And the next is about preference structure. Acceptance is structurally more likely than refusal, and structural likelihood is called preference. Preference structure divides second part into preferred and dispreferred social acts. And then I will explain in the chapter 9 is about discourse and culture. The first one is discourse analysis. Discourse analysis covers an extremely wide range of activities from the narrowly focused investigation of how words such as oh or well are used in casual talk to study of the dominant ideology in a culture as represented, for example, in its educational or political practice. And then the next is about coherence. Coherence is the familiar and expected relationship in experience which used to connect the meanings of utterances, even whose those connections are not explicitly made. And then about background knowledge. Background of knowledge based on our experience and related with our ability to come automatically and interpretation of the unwritten and the unsaid based on pre-existing knowledge structure. And the schema is a pre-existing knowledge structure in memory. And the next is about cultural schematic. Cultural schemata are pre-existing knowledge structures based on experience in a particular culture. We develop our cultural schemata in the context of our basic experiences. And the last is about cross-cultural pragmatics. Cross-cultural pragmatics is the study of differences in expectation among different communities regarding how meaning is constructed. Okay, I think that's all from me. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.